we got this great feedback, there just wasn't much we could do about it. Just some ideas on scaling user testing for time. This might sound strange, but like if you leave it to really late in the project, you're going to have no time at all. So if time is an issue for you, you should test as early as you can, because you're going to have more time for the changes and you're going to be able to shape the game more with the issues that you find. Test fewer players. You can get valuable feedback from one person if you get a really good in-depth idea of their experience. If one person, is having issues, they're getting stuck, and you sell your game to a couple of million people, like hundreds of thousands of people are going to have that problem. Expertise, so ideally you can hire a user testing expert, but if you can't, you should make a single person responsible for user testing, and it should be one of their priorities to really push it and make sure that it happens and research it and schedule it and everything. If you can't get expertise, you should read up on processes, get some usability books, find out what other companies are doing. But mostly, I guess you can just try it out, see what goes wrong, see what good feedback you got, and iteratively improve your processes. Learn from your own mistakes. So resources, I think it's cheaper to test in your own studio. You've got the space, you've got the consoles and the machines and everything that you need. Get people that you know. I know the AIE students are always happy to help out, or your local university or whatever. Pay people in food and loot. A lot of students are happy to work for pizza or free t-shirts. Getting your team involved. As I said before, I think one of the biggest advantages of internal testing is that everyone can participate. Some of the different ways you can get your team involved are get people to contribute to setting the goals or creating procedures. What do they want to learn from the testing? Get the team to review the procedures and the outcomes that you come up with. Did they find out what they needed? Did they get the answers that they wanted? Get as many people as you can to attend the sessions. If you're holding them in your studio, they can just come in for a few minutes and experience firsthand what players are thinking about their game and how they're interacting with it. And communicating and what did you learn? If people went to the sessions, get them to share with everyone else. What did they find out? What did they take away from it? Just a few tips. Test early and often. Start testing as soon as possible. It's really easy to just push it off until it's too late, because there's so many things that just have to be done first. I'd say it's almost never too early. You can, test with paper prototypes if you want, some of the major concepts, and iterate. So make changes to the game and your processes and test again. But I guess the converse of that is don't over-test. I think it's really bad just to be collecting masses of data that you're not going to use. That's just wasted time. Like, really try to focus your efforts. So what do I want to get out of this test? Collect the data, and only the data that you need and that you're going to use, and just get the most out of each session. So outcome driven, which is similar. Don't just collect any data. Start with what do I need to know to improve the game? What do I want the reports to tell me? And work backwards from there. That's it.
Thanks, Penny. And we've got some microphones I think that can go around if anybody's got questions.
Hi. So you were talking about how you could have used Bioshock to test Bioshock 2, essentially. Was testing of this kind done on Bioshock? And because it seems like it's a fairly polished game, so I would assume that it was. And could you just have taken the same feedback? Was there feedback on Bioshock that wasn't integrated into the game that you could have used directly? That would be great.
I actually didn't work on the original Bioshock, so I don't have a lot of information about that. I do know that they did use an outsourcer But we actually did use an outsourcer for Bioshock 2 as well, but they're more of a marketing type company, and they conducted focus group testing, and the reports were only a few pages long, and they were quite high level, and they said things like the story needs to be better. So it's kind of hard to like take that level of feedback and incorporate it into the game.
Just wanted to start by saying I'm glad to see this sort of activity occur. I come from an interaction design background, and this is stuff we know well, and it's absolutely essential for successful products. So just to reinforce the point that it should start at the start, I had a question for you, which was more in terms of methods. Interested in what you see as being the possibilities for ethnographic research. So for example, going out into the field and observing players. Working with the product after release. What possible benefits could you see for that?
So sorry,
Going out into the field, observing players in their homes, for example, how they play the game, how they socialise with the game. What opportunities could you see for that?
I think if you're working on a sequel, I guess those sorts of things are useful. Like I guess once you finish your product, generally you don't want to do any more testing because it's not a very direct financial benefit to you. But I can't see it as something that developers would do, probably actually going out into someone's home and researching them. I do realise that a lab setting isn't exactly the same, you're not going to have the same experience, but my feeling is that from the issues that you find out, it's kind of good enough, I think. And like they're not perfect experimental procedures that we use, but the results that we get, there are hundreds of issues that we don't even address. So we certainly, I guess we don't need to go any further than that. I think it's probably an interesting academic pursuit though.
Just interested to know what proportion of your recommendations that you make are actually binding, and whether you rank or prioritise the recommendations that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. Generally, in a given session, I'll find hundreds of things, but generally a lot of them will sort of solidify around common themes or major things in the game, and certainly I do prioritise those by severity or how much they're impacting on the player's experience or how many people are finding that issue. But then when it goes to fixing those issues, obviously it's balanced out by bang for buck and what we can fix and things that are kind of set in the game at the time that you're testing.
Talked about rebuilding and using iterations. Would you get the same players back in to do those tests again, or would you look at getting new ones?
We always get new ones. One of the major things I think is just first impressions and starting from the beginning of the game and playing through. And I guess it's just not as useful to have someone come back and see if they still have those same issues because they've spent that period of time being trained by the game, and really you want to see someone who's just picked it up and start playing it, are they having those issues? Because you find that after a few hours, people will learn how the game works. So those issues will go away over time. So if we brought those same people back, they probably wouldn't still be having the same issues.
Would you use it to look at the multiplayer aspects of the game and see if they liked the improvements you made, or?
Well, we did have people come in over a couple of weeks, and sometimes we did make small changes between. And the funny thing was, players always said, "Oh, I know that you've changed this," and usually we hadn't changed anything at all. They're like, "We really like this now. Those tuning changes you made were awesome." But I think for multiplayer, yeah,